Okay, so now we are ready to go over data entry in DonorQuest. You should have four data entry windows on your screen. The main information view at the top, then donations, scheduled contacts, and the Notepad. Each of the areas where you can enter data in DonorQuest has a corresponding toolbar icon here in the upper left-hand side of the toolbar. So there's the file folder icon, which corresponds with the main information view, gifts, which corresponds to donations, pledges, memos, extra addresses, linkages, Notepad, and scheduled contacts. One great feature about DonorQuest is that you can see more than one data entry window at a time for your donors. So if I were to highlight Brad Anderson here at the top and then scroll down the list of donors, you'll notice that the information down below in the other data windows will switch to reflect the information for the donor that's highlighted up above. And the numbers within parentheses below each toolbar icon here just represent the number of data entries for the for that particular data entry area. So, for example, Brad Anderson has 20 donations. So down below here, what we have open right now is what we call the Spreadsheet View, which looks very similar to an Excel spreadsheet. And in the Spreadsheet View, we can look at the data, we can organize it, sort it, but we can't make any changes. To do that, we have to use the buttons here to the left. So if you want to add a new donor, obviously you click Add. If you want to make changes to an existing donor, you click Edit. Now, to make the windows fit nicely across your screen, what you do is click the window, tile all vertically, and then you can see we now have them organized all the way across the screen to kind of optimize for your screen resolution. So we can also open up more windows if we want to. So for example, if I wanted to open the pledges for Brad Anderson, I could do that. And then again, just click Window, Tile All, and now you'll see we have 5 data entry windows open. But for this demo, what I want to do is close a couple just for now, and we'll come back to them. So I'm going to close the scheduled contacts. I will close the Notepad. And then if I click Window, Tile All again, they'll maximize across the screen, and now we can see more data. So what I'd like to do first is go over this main information view, which is at the top. So to go through the data entry fields, just go ahead and click Edit here to the left of Brad Anderson's name. And this brings up the form view, and this is where we can make changes to Brad Anderson's record. And you'll see that the form view here is organized into tabs. So the first tab that pops open is the primary tab. And this contains the main biographical information for the primary donor on this account. So you'll notice here in the lower right-hand corner, there's an email button. If you want to send a quick email to Brad, you can just click this button, and what DonorQuest will do is open up Microsoft Outlook and copy the email address into the to block of a new email. There are several other email programs that are compatible with DonorQuest. Outlook just happens to be the default. You'll also notice there's 3 checkboxes on this screen. So there's inactive, no acknowledgement, and bad address. Check these boxes if you want to exclude this donor from specific mailings, either because they're inactive or they don't want an acknowledgement, or you're getting email back as bad address. So next we'll move on to additional info. This is just more biographical information about the main donor. So don't feel like you need to use all these data entry fields. We have lots of different types of organizations that use DonorQuest. So for some organizations, some of these fields may be more important than for others. The profile codes in the lower left, we recommend you use those for fundraising interests. So moving on to the secondary tab. This is where you would store information for the secondary donor on this account. So if you have a couple that's giving together, you would put one of their names here. And if for any reason this couple in the future, now or in the future, decides to start giving separately, you can click this Create as a New Record button, and it will copy all this information over into a new record. Next, we have the Constituency tab. In the upper left, you have your salutations. So salutation 1, what we recommend you do there is put the formal way you want to address this donor or donors. Salutation 2 would be the informal way to address them, and salutation 3 is the third extra salutation field in case there's a third way you want to address these donors. There's some more checkboxes. Do not solicit spring holidays. So again, these are checkboxes either to exclude or include donors in mailings. Then over here to the right, you have your list codes. So here is where you store all the various lists within your organization, your board member list, your employee list, etc. And as you see here, you can have each donor belong to more than one list, and they don't need to be in any particular order. When you run a search across these list codes, the search runs across all 10. Next, we have the Totals tab. These are just some quick glance totals for this donor. The Chart tab shows you giving history for this donor, and you can see in the lower left here there's a drop down where you can switch between various ways to display the data. Chart 2 shows the top 10 campaigns for this donor, and if you want to print this off, there's a print button down here at the bottom. So that is it for the main information view. So now let's go through donations really quickly and the fields you can enter data for donations. So I clicked Edit again, this time to the left of the donations data entry window, and we have date, amount, the type is the form of payment for this donation, the account is the actual bank account that the money is going to be deposited into, and you can link these to your financial software as well. The stimulus is what triggered the donor to give. So typically your campaign codes would be listed here, as well as any events. The fund would be what the money is to be used for. The appeal is if you have a campaign with several different appeal letters that go out, you can track which appeal letter actually, again, triggered the donor to give. The TY letter is the thank you letter for this gift, or if you don't want the donor to receive a thank you letter, you can just leave that blank. The TY value is the tax deductible value of the gift. So if the donor receives something in return for this donation and there was monetary value attached to that, you could deduct whatever that value was from this gift. Then we have check and credit card information below that, where you can store that information related to this donation. And the comment field is any sort of general comment you want to leave about the donation. Then down at the very bottom, there's two more buttons. There's Pledge to Credit and Give Soft Credit To. So if this donation is going towards a pledge that the donor has ongoing, then you would click the Browse button here and choose which pledge this donation is going towards. And then DonorQuest will automatically deduct the amount of this donation from the total amount that the donor is pledged to give. Give Soft Credit To is a way for you to recognize donors or organizations that are instrumental in bringing gifts in. So if there was a person or organization that influenced this donor to give, then you could give soft credit by just selecting the donor here from the list. And there are reports built into DonorQuest that will help you track which of your donors are influential in bringing in soft donations. All right, so next, moving across the toolbar from left to right, now we have pledges, and the pledges window is open at the bottom of the screen. So I'm just going to click Edit on this first pledge for Brad Anderson. And looking at this pledge, there's a start date and a stop date, which you will need to enter for each pledge that you create. The amount is the total amount for the pledge, and the payment amount is the installment amount, and the frequency is how often the donor is committed to making that payment amount. Down below are fields that we just went over within donations. So again, just storing the payment information for the pledge. And then you'll notice in the upper right, there's two checkboxes, Renew Pledge and Pledge Written Off. So if the donor at the end of this pledge wants to renew it for the exact same terms, you can just click the Renew Pledge checkbox and OK, and the pledge will automatically renew. Or if for any reason the donor can't fulfill their pledge, you can write it off by clicking or checking the Pledge Written Off checkbox and OK. And the pledge will stay there in the donor's record, but it will just take it out of any reports that are forecasting future donations regarding the pledge. So next we're going to go into Memos, which you can open just by clicking on this icon here. So Memos is an area of the program where you can store an unlimited amount of coded information for each donor. And you can see some examples here. One thing I think is a good thing to store here within Memos is all the appeals that each donor receive. So to add a new memo code, all you have to do is click the button Add here, and you'll just type in a code that corresponds with one of your appeal letters that goes out. So for example, Fall Appeal 2013. So if I type in a code there and then hit Tab, you'll get a warning on your screen that says FA13 is undefined. Would you like to define it? And if you do, then you just click Yes. And the description would just be exactly what we are, what the acronym stands for up in the code box. So I just clicked on that, and then the text is just another place where you can store information about what that code actually means. So here I can just type in Receive Fall Appeal 2013. So now I'm going to click OK. And now we'll see that the new memo code is there listed under Brad's record. And it's actually available now in all the donors within DonorQuest. And if you send out an appeal with several hundred or several thousand people on the list, you don't have to go through the records one by one to enter that appeal code for each donor. You can actually do it in a mass fashion, and we'll get to that later when we get into selections and mailings. Okay, so next we're going to go into extra addresses, and I'm going to open that by clicking on this little house icon here at the top. And if you have donors that live at different houses during different times of the year, or if you want to store a work address or a second address for a donor, you can do that here. So in this example, you can see this is Brad Anderson's summer home. And of course, you can create all the codes that you want to create for specific to your organization. These are just examples. But if this is a summer home that Brad goes to every year, what you can do is check the Ignore Years checkbox like it is here. And regardless of the year, DonorQuest is just going to, during these months, swap out the address. If this is just a one-time address swap where, again, for example, Brad Anderson's just going to this house just this year, but not next year, you can leave this unchecked, and then only during the dates specified here, Brad Anderson, the DonorQuest will swap out the extra address. All right, next we're going to go to linkages. So linkages is how you link donors together, define relationships between your donors. So a good example of this is the employer-employee relationship. So if you have a large employer in the area with lots of employees that give to you on a regular basis, you can note that relationship here. So this is saying that Brad Anderson's employer is IBM. Another example of this would be families. So if you have a mother, daughter, father, son, all with separate addresses, you can link them together as a family. Okay, so next we're going to go over the Notepad. So the Notepad is just an area of the program where you can store unlimited free-form notes about your donor. And you can also search on it. So if there's certain keywords you want to look across all your donors to see if they have that in common, you can do that as well. And lastly, we have scheduled contacts. So I'm going to open that by clicking the contact button, and then let's look at the second contact for Brad Anderson. So this is the form for the scheduled contact reminder. So just going over these fields from top to bottom. So the contact description is just a description of the last conversation you had with the donor, or the next item or next follow-up item with the donor. And then the action are just the various actions that you might have with your donor. So some examples would be callback, grant request, initial call, send email would be another one. And then you'll see down here, just below that on the right, there's next contact and last contact. So the next contact date is the date that you want DonorQuest to remind you about this contact. So if you remember at the very beginning when we installed DonorQuest and logged in, there was a little reminder that popped up that said you had one contact from the past that you need to take care of. So that's the scheduled contact system. The last contact date is the date that the last interaction with the donor took place. And then you'll see over here, there's two radio buttons. There's contact open and contact close. So the reminder feature that I just discussed only works if the contact is left open. If the contact is closed, DonorQuest will keep this contact information in the system, but it won't remind you about it anymore. Another feature is you can actually schedule contacts for other people within the office. So the only stipulation is they have to be users of DonorQuest. But if, for example, I wanted to tell Gabe that he had something he needed to take care of with one of the donors next week, I could do that by switching the user to Gabe, and then Gabe would be reminded of that interaction with the donor. The notes here, again, it's just like the Notepad. It's just a area where you can store free-form notes about the last interaction with the donor or the next one that you want to have take place. And then down below here, there's some grant-specific information. So this also can be used to track the various grants that you have going on with foundations. Okay, so that covers the data entry portion of this demonstration. And next we are ready to move on to selections.